Good Monday morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is the 11th of November. And today we'll start with Tesla that shot higher Friday, even higher Friday, and then broke above 313. That was a bit of a resistance, but apparently not. It went straight through, and there's not really much stopping Tesla, as we can see here on the weekly chart, until previous peaks. We have a little bit of resistance here around 370, 384, but then we are looking at previous all-time highs around and above, above 400. So really strong move there. However, you should expect some corrections on the way. But as we can see here, RSI pointing higher, no divergence despite showing above 75, and thereby is actually in an overbought state. So we could see a little bit of correction. But here on the weekly, you can see that the RSI has now cancelled the divergence. You can see it actually broke above this horizontal line here, so now it cancelled that divergence, indicating that we are likely to see higher Tesla levels in the coming weeks. The index itself, S&P 500, and let's zoom in on it a little bit, but let's take a look. Since we have ended a week and then we had a much higher close, just below 6,000. We did spike above 6,012, testing the rising trend line here, but since it's the upper trend line, it's merely just a guideline. However, as you can see, there's divergence here. The RSI are declining, RSI values are declining, so it is a bit stretched, but we could continue a little bit higher, because here on the daily chart we can see that the divergence has now been cancelled. So let's remove this one, because the RSI actually did close above its previous peak. There is now potential higher for the S&P 500 that spiked above 6,000. There could be potential higher here towards the end of the year. Do expect some corrections, of course, but as we can see at pre-market, we are ticking a little bit higher, and it's currently above 6,000 pre-market. No divergence, so let's remove this one and this one. So just to indicate that we are likely to see high levels. Same picture on the Nasdaq 100, actually. Also potential now to 21,300, maybe 21,500. But we will see some corrections and some profit taking on the way, because it's been one hell of a ride after the election day. Pre-market just taking a little bit higher, so there is potential up to around these levels here, maybe 21,400, 24,400. But keep your stops tight. There could be a little bit of correction coming in. Here we have the Dow Jones also pushing higher, and it's a little bit higher also. Pre-market, it spiked above 44,000. There is potential up to 45,000. And if we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see it's really strong bullish move. But the RSI divergence is still there. But I think we will have a fairly strong end to the year, until, of course, some patterns could emerge, or will emerge, that will tell a different story, but we will cover that when and if that occurs. The European markets, on the other hand, they are struggling. Here we have EUROSTOXX 50 once again Friday testing the 4,800, just closed a few cents, a few euros above. If it really closes below, well, then we are looking at 47.32. But if it takes out the cloud here, then I think we'll see it break this 47.32, and then there's potential lower for EuroSTOXX 50. It needs to get back above the 49.07 just to demolish this bearish picture. I mean, we are already in a bearish trend. There's negative sentiment, no divergence. However, here, just pre-market, we are indicating up about 0.5%. So maybe just look out for this range here on EuroSTOXX 50. The DAX index tried again Friday to open higher, but got sent back down, and 19,000 is still key support that should be observed. We can see here pre-market we are bouncing a little bit, so maybe the US market can lift the European markets a little bit. But what is interesting is we still have this rising wedge that it has broken out of, and it hasn't really demolished that picture. If it moves back above the lower rising wedge, lower rising trend line, it's Monday morning, sorry about that, lower rising trend line here, then it's likely to be busted, and we could see DAX resuming uptrend. The AX index, key support at 873, dipping below once again. Here we have the pre-markets picking up a little bit. Here it's the 870 that is key support. So I'll remove this one because it's really 870 that key support for the future. The CAC 40 also 73.41 once again. It actually closed just below it. It is in a bearish trend. There is negative sentiment. It could push lower, but pre-market we are bouncing a little bit. Buyers are coming in here from the morning. Let's see if it can hold. The Swiss markets also had a bad day Friday, 11,750 key support. Euro dollar is pushing lower once again after some volatility towards the end of the week, but the end of the week actually closed lower. Still 106.65 key support, and we can see here on the weekly why it's such a key support. If it takes out that, well, the downtrend has confirmed, and if the RSI on the weekly is closing below 40, it actually did close below 40 Friday, so I think we'll take out 106.65, potential down to around 105, 104.5 levels. Euro sterling, and we'll keep the weekly chart here. We can see it's now pushing below 83, and it already broken its rising trend line here on the RSI, currently below the 40 threshold on the RSI, meaning if it does close the day below 40 threshold, well, we are in a negative sentiment and likely to see lower levels on euro sterling. And we'll look at the UK gilts at the end of this lit video, so you can see also the development there on the gilts, but there's now potential down to 82.30 unless it can bounce and then once again close above 83 on the day. Cable or sterling dollar didn't update, it's coming here, sorry, still in this range here between 128.70. It spiked lower a couple of times. I still think the key support here is 128. We are in a negative sentiment, but there's a little bit divergence here. So let's see if it can bounce back on sterling dollar. The 130.45 key resistance and also 131. So the upside is limited. So we could actually be caught in this range here for a little while, but let's see what's going on. Here on the medium term, you can see it's broken its rising trend line. Still positive sentiment on the RSI, though there's no divergence indicating it should turn around, but I think we'll see here a couple of days range bound trading. Moving on to the yen pairs and dollar yen, still in this trend channel here, what it seems to be at least. There is divergence now on the RSI. You can see this peak here is lower than this peak over here, but we've had higher prices here and here, just below 155. Can't really push higher, but if it takes out the peak here from last week at 154.70, then I think we'll see a push higher towards 160. And if we're looking at the weekly chart, we should look at the weekly chart and see what's actually going on here. We can see, well, if it pushes higher, 157.16, which is the 786 retracement of the entire sell-off there we saw here in Q3. So maybe we'll get up there, but it's struggling a little bit at the moment. So let's see where the week ends. 151.45 support that is to be observed on dollar yen. On euro yen, a little bit different picture. Actually dipped below the 164 support, trying to get back up. What is key interesting is that the RSI is still in a positive sentiment. It's not below 40, and there's no divergence indicating maybe this is merely just a correction that could take it a little bit lower. So what we'll do is we'll zoom in and then look at the RSI of this leg up here and say, okay, what's going on really? And we are now at the 38.2 retracement at 163.40. It could dip down to the 61.8 at 161.38 before it also gets some support from the 55 moving average. If it takes out 166.70 here, I just add a little bit to the 69.5. then I think we'll see a push higher towards 170. Aussie yen, also slightly rising channel, still positive sentiment on the RSI, no divergence. It should crawl higher in the coming weeks. 102.05 was this 61.8 retracement with this massive sell-off here back in July and August. If it takes out the peak here from last week at 102.40, well, then I think we'll see a push up to around 105. The sterling yen, well, resistance here just below 200 failed to push through. If it takes it out, once again 199.95, well, then I think we'll see a push up higher levels towards 250. And if we add Fibonacci also as a bit of a guideline to this sell-off here down to here, we also saw here in July, August, then 202.15 is right up here at the 786 and the 138 projection of this little correction here. If it takes out 195.35, well, then we could see a correction down to, I don't think we'll get all the way down to 192, but in this range here where we have the 55 moving average coming up, giving some support. Aussie dollar, extremely volatile towards the end of last week, bouncing strongly from just above 65, and then it bounced to the 38.2 here after some volatile days. I think if it's resuming downtrend, the first clue of that will be if it breaks the, and do this. This is a good idea. I think it will resume downtrend. It is currently below the lower rising trend line here. It's just to get an idea, but if it takes out 65.12, 65.10, then I think we'll see a push lower towards 64. However, 66.80 to the upside could give a little bit of further bounce, but as you can see, 55 moving average coming down. We have the 100 also coming down there and the 200 here, but those will give a pressure to the downside, which I think we will see on Aussie dollar. Dollar Canada. Well, dollar Canada in this massive range here between 139.60 and 138.20. That is the range to look out for. We could see a lot of movements in here. I think, however, that we will get a push higher. And why is that? Well, and this is what you should look out for. The RSI is still in a positive sentiment and there's no divergence. The peaks are indicating likely higher levels for dollar Canada to, above 140. Euro Swiss still don't do much really, just trading sideways, a little bit frustrating, but suddenly it will break out. 93.30 to the downside, you should observe 94.50 to the upside, that could push it up to 95, potentially higher, especially if we get the RSI to close above 60 threshold. The dollar Swiss, the dollar Swiss is pushing higher towards 88.25. I think actually it will push a little bit higher. I think it could push up to the 88.90 level, which is the 138 projection of this corrective move here. And then it's broken this range. I think we could see it bit, but there's some strong resistance in this area around 88.25. The dollar index also had been very volatile of late, of course, and we can see here now on the there is a divergence on the RSI, so we are a little bit stretched, but we could still see. You should trust the trend until it's ending. So if we get the RSI to close above the upper falling trend line here, then I think we'll see the dollar index pushing towards 105.70, 80 level at the previous peaks right up there. If it starts taking out 104 once again, then we could see a push lower towards, and I'll just want to adjust this one to the low end of the range here, but we could be caught range trading here for quite a while with a little bit positive note. Gold, also quite a bit of volatility, bounced off the 786 retracement at 26.43 here on the 7th of November, up to test the 2,708 resistance, and it also did it this morning, just spiking a few cents above, and now it is sliding lower. If it takes out 26.43, expect 2600 key support to be tested. Close below, well, then we have a bigger correction going on. Let's have a look at the weekly chart to see what's actually going on. It has formed what could look like we had this shooting star candle here. It is not the best top and reversal pattern, but I think we are in for a correction. However, as you can see here, the RSI, there's no divergence on the RSI, indicating after a correction we could see higher levels on the medium term. But let's cross that bridge when we get that signal. If it closes above 27.08, I will actually say 27.10, which is the peak of today, then I think we'll see resuming of the uptrend. Silver experienced some sell-off, then a bounce off the 786 retracement just around 31, testing it once again. Still positive sentiment on the RSI. If it can bounce back, well, then we could see higher levels on the RSI because there's no divergence on the RSI indicating likely higher highs. But if RSI closes below 40 threshold and we get a close below 31 on the silver, well, then we will likely to see a push towards 30 and maybe even lower. But for now, still there's a little bit of hope it will bounce back. If it takes out 32 and a quarter, then I think we'll see it start crawling higher. On the copper, the metals, when we're talking about metals that had a massive sell-off, then a bounce off 422, not the strongest support really. And we're clutching straws a little bit here. Just trading around 430. I would say we need a breakout either to the upside at 450. I added a little bit here, 449.90 and 422.5. If it takes out that, well, then we're looking at 410, maybe even lower. But if it takes out 450, then we are back towards 470, 480 again. Crude oil, once again, rejected at the 72.34 here. The WTI could be sent back down, and we are below the cloud, so it looks quite heavy. It really needs to get back above this area here at 72.34, 72.50, and back above the cloud, which is really struggling at the moment. So it still looks heavy for me. The Brent crude oil, well, also didn't even get up to the 76.54, so it looks fairly heavy. On the gas market, well, still not much to say on the Dutch gas crawling higher. I think it will push higher going into the winter, but for now it is stalling a little bit and needs to take out. You can see if we zoom in a little bit here, and we have the 100 weekly pushing down, but 55 is giving a little bit of support. We are in a positive sentiment both on daily and weekly, so we should push higher. The Henry Hub gas pushing higher this early morning here, but it's still trading in this triangle-like pattern. It really needs to break out of. If it takes out $3, well, then I think we'll see a push towards $3.5, maybe even $4. The US 10-year Treasury yields, we'll just need to resume here. So let's just recap what we talked about last week. We are trading in this rising channel-like pattern, stalling a little bit after being rejected at 447, 448. And we can see here on the weekly chart why that is so important. If it does close above 448, actually even better above 450, well, then it's definitely has broken this falling trend line, broken bullish out of this falling channel-like pattern. But for now, I think we will see a correction lower. There is a little bit of divergence here on the RSI. Yes, there is. We can see this peak here is lower than this one, but this one was lower, higher than this one. We should see a correction possibly down to around 424, 13, where we have the 100 moving average giving some support, the 55 coming up here, the 200 also sloping up now, or the 101 sloping up now. So I think it's just a correction, but 450 is really key area for US 10-year Treasury yields. If it takes out 413, well, then we can see correction coming a little bit lower. The 2-year also stalling a little bit. There is divergence, as you can see. The RSI values are declining. And if you want to know a bit about how I use the RSI divergence and positives and negative sentiment, what's the video that I put out explaining how to use RSI in your trading? It's in there under the educational playlist. This is also in the educational piece, but still. Here we have the US 2-year Treasury yields trying to push higher. If it takes out 426, the previous peak here, well, then there's potential up to 437. And we can see here on weekly, very strong bounce. Looking at the UK Gilts, and this is the future we're looking at. It actually did form Friday a bullish engulfing pattern, so that is a bottom and reversal indication, and I think we could see a bounce higher, possibly up to 95.30, 35, maybe even up to 95.37. However, there's no divergence on the R side despite it's bouncing, indicating maybe this is just a correction phase, and then we'll see a turnaround a little bit later. But for now, expect a bounce. If it takes out the lows from last week here at 92.5, well, then expect a push lower to 91.90. You can see here on the weekly, we're actually in a negative sentiment. We are in bearish trend, likely to push lower. The EuroBund future also bouncing this morning, and I think we'll see a push up towards 103 level, maybe a little bit higher, but here we have the 100 moving average coming down, the 55 moving average coming down, giving a pressure also here, the 200. So it could be a little bit of a struggle, and it could stop it just below 133 before it slides lower. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day, and talk to you again later.